On April 27, 2007, a search and rescue team located the remains of Corey Colley in Beltrami Forest after an extensive 6-month search. The discovery was deeply disturbing. Mr. Cayley's body appeared to have been bisected, with his upper torso missing and his lower extremities in an advanced state of decomposition. Scattered nearby were bleached bones, indicating prolonged exposure to the elements. Initial findings suggested a violent dismemberment prior to death. However, the case took on an even more perplexing nature due to the discovery of unsettling photographs on Mr. Cayley's camera. Let's go back to October 16, 2006. Corey, 38 years old, and his friend James Freed planned a hunting trip to Minnesota's Beltrami Forest. If you go 16 miles further north from the forest, you'd reach Lake of the Woods, America's 6th largest freshwater lake, right at the Canadian border. This area is a maze of lakes and peat bogs. The terrain is so rugged and swampy that even experienced hunters can get lost. Corey and James brought everything they needed for the trip, including James's yellow hunting dog. The forest had its share of white-tailed deer and moose, but most hunters came here for grouse. Beltrami is Minnesota's 2nd largest forest, full of rivers and interwoven lakes. To keep people safe, park officials had put up warning signs, telling hunters to avoid nighttime activities. That afternoon, around 4 p.m., Corey and James set up camp and decided to split up to cover more ground. They agreed to meet back at the campsite at 6:30 p.m. James made it back on time, but Corey didn't. When Corey finally stumbled out of the woods an hour later, he was sweating and looked rattled. He told James he'd gotten lost and asked, "Did you smell that awful stench while you were out there?" James shrugged it off, saying it was probably a dead grouse or maybe even a moose. Neither of them had any luck hunting that day, and James suddenly remembered his car was low on gas. He told Corey to stay put while he drove to town to refuel. "Don't wander off," James said before leaving. As James got in his car, he noticed a grouse just a few dozen feet away. Corey was already chasing after it as James drove off. Upon returning to their campsite at 9 p.m., James discovered it deserted and shrouded in darkness. Despite calling out for his companion Corey, there was no response. After an agonizing wait until 11 p.m., James initiated a search, retracing their earlier route. His efforts, however, proved fruitless, leading him to fear the worst. Distressed and seeking assistance, James encountered 2 unfamiliar individuals in the dense woodland. Although he couldn't discern their facial features due to the darkness, a pungent odor emanated from them. Their lack of firearms struck James as unusual given the hunting environment. They advised him to contact law enforcement immediately. Subsequently, James cooperated with an interview conducted by the Beltrami County Sheriff's Department. He clarified that neither he nor Corey engaged in substance abuse, but acknowledged Corey's use of painkillers following a spinal injury sustained during a prior hunting expedition. Describing their friendship as recent but strong, formed through shared fishing trips, James emphasized Corey's cheerful and responsible nature. He recounted that Corey had been pursuing a grouse when last seen, and that his phone calls went directly to voicemail. On October 25th, Corey's family, along with hundreds of volunteers and several agencies, arrived at the site to help with the search. They set up a large staging area, and helicopters and ground teams scoured the forest. 2 miles north of Moose River, searchers found James's dog, Sammy. The dog had gone missing with Corey, and it seemed Corey had taken the dog when he left the camp. By the time Sammy was found, he was severely dehydrated and malnourished. Corey sent samples of the dog's stomach contents and feces to a lab, trying to determine if it had eaten human remains. The results came back negative. There were no traces of human tissue, only dirt and grass. During the search, crews found several of Corey's belongings: his hat, a pack of cigarettes, some bullets, a lighter, and a glove. They also came across strange footprints, some of which showed that Corey had been walking barefoot. There were signs of a campfire, but it wasn't clear if Corey had made it. The footprints and items suggested Corey had been heading southeast, following a flooded drainage ditch into the dense, swampy woods. Almost everything they found, his belongings, the footprints, formed a straight line along this path. The search continued until November, but worsening weather forced them to call it off. On April 27, 2007, after the snow had melted, Beltrami County resumed the search with the help of 5 K-9 units. The helicopter spotted Corey's remains in a cold, swampy forest. His body was found lying in a marsh, with his legs submerged in water. Disturbingly, his body appeared to have been severed in half. The upper half was completely missing, while his legs had turned to bare bones, some scattered nearby. What puzzled search teams was that they had already combed this area during the initial search, but the dense grass had likely concealed the body. Aside from Corey's decayed lower half, his camera, shoes, and hunting rifle were never found. The autopsy revealed that Corey's bones had been gnawed on by animals. But here's the strange part. What kind of creature could tear his body in two like that? Sure, the Beltrami forest has some wolves and black bears, but neither of them could inflict this level of damage. And Corey had his rifle and plenty of ammunition. As a hunter, he knew how to protect himself. His shoes, they think, were probably the last thing he took off well before everything happened. All the evidence points to Corey getting lost in the woods. James told Corey, if you ever get lost, head west. And Corey had a compass. So why did he go the wrong way? I don't know why he made that choice, James said. At first, Corey dropped smaller items, almost like he was leaving a trail for someone to find him. For a while, he must have still been thinking clearly. That's what the police said. The search for Corey's body continued through the end of 2007. Then in 2009, a hunter found something 39 miles away from where Corey's body had initially been discovered. There was a shoe soaking in water. Next to it, a blue jacket and a camera. After testing, authorities confirmed that these items all belonged to Corey Kelly, the man who disappeared in 2006. Here's where it gets even stranger. If Corey had walked to that location, he would have had to go non-stop for 14 hours without eating or resting. However, Corey's body was found in a swamp in the middle of Beltrami Forest, while the shoe and jacket were located way south in the Heron Lake wildlife area. So how did his belongings end up there? Perhaps the camera held the answer. When the photos were recovered, investigators found that some were taken on October 16th, 2006, the day Corey went missing, while others were from the 17th. This means Corey survived for at least 2 nights out there. The photos were unsettling. Some depicted scenery, trees, streams, and the forest, while others showed deep woods, places that looked like lairs or nests. One photo captured huge, human-like footprints, and another showed a massive underground cave. The remaining images are difficult to interpret. While photographic evidence did not clarify the circumstances surrounding Corey Kelly's disappearance, authorities have proposed a more straightforward explanation. They suggest that Mr. Kelly perished from hypothermia, and his remains were subsequently scavenged by animals. This determination classifies the case as an accidental death resulting from unforeseen events. Nevertheless, this conclusion is contested by some individuals. David Paulides, an investigator with the Missing 411 Project, which documents cases of unexplained disappearances, considers Corey Kelly's case a prime example of hunters vanishing under mysterious circumstances within national parks. Mr. Paulides posits that these individuals may be observed and targeted by an unidentified entity. In the instance of the Beltrami Forest, he suspects this entity to be a swamp ape, also known as the skunk ape, a creature akin to Bigfoot, but inhabiting lowland swamps and emitting a pungent odor. Despite investigative efforts, the precise details surrounding Corey Kelly's disappearance may forever remain unknown. The swamp ape is typically characterized by reddish-brown fur, though reports of black-haired sightings exist. Standing at approximately 7 feet tall, it is smaller than its northern counterpart, Bigfoot. Some researchers theorize that the swamp ape might reside in subterranean caverns, or even underwater, rendering it extremely elusive. Its most distinctive trait is an overpowering foul odor, attributed to a scent gland, making its presence readily detectable. Since the incident, Corey's rifle has never been found. To honor his memory, the 39-mile trail running from central Beltrami Forest to Heron Lake is now called the Corey Kelly Trail. As for James, he has been consumed by guilt ever since. After Corey's death, he gave up hunting for good. Sometimes I think, he said, Life has this strange way of flipping the script. Hunters go out there thinking they're in control, that they're the ones with the power, but in an instant, the hunter can become the hunted. The search for Corey Kelly was massive, involving 62 organizations in 2 countries working together, with 6,500 hours spent and hundreds of volunteers involved. Yet, even after more than a decade, Corey's case remains unsolved. His half-missing body, the cryptic photos on his camera, the rifle that vanished without a trace, and those 2 towering figures reeking of that nauseating stench. Who or what were they? After Corey's camera and creepy photos were discovered, which were much talked about in the neighborhood, new strange events began to occur in the Beltrami area. A couple of years later, 2 teenagers decided to repeat his route for the sake of thrills and put everything on the internet. They set off for the forest light, promising their friends to return by evening, but they never returned home. The next day, the police found their car at the entrance to Beltrami, but never the guys themselves. On the muddy road leading deep into the forest, the prints of huge feet were noticeable. They resembled human feet in shape, but they were too wide and deep, as if they had been left by someone weighing several hundred kilograms. Local hunters began to notice the oddities even before this incident. Many swore that at night a strange noise was coming from the swamps. Heavy breathing and harsh screams, similar to a mixture of a roaring deer and a distorted human voice. Those who dared to stay in the forest until dark described the same thing, a suffocating smell, as if from rotting meat or old decomposed animal carcasses. Some said that the smell appeared suddenly and disappeared just as quickly, as if its bearer was moving nearby, remaining invisible in the dark. The county sheriff tried to reassure residents, blaming everything on the activity of bears that allegedly migrated through the forest. But residents increasingly noticed something else. The forest seemed to be emptying. Beltrami has always been rich in wildlife, but in recent years there have been fewer deer, smaller animals have disappeared, and predators have avoided the swamps. It was as if the wild fauna itself sensed that something alien had settled in these places. In 2011, a new episode occurred, which only increased the fears. 30 miles to the south, a local fisherman came out onto the river before dark. According to him, the morning was quiet and foggy, and he was about to pull out his nets when he noticed movement on the opposite shore. A figure stood between the trees, huge, taller than any human, with broad shoulders and a massive silhouette. At first he thought it was a man in hunting clothes, but immediately he felt a sharp, disgusting smell, as if from decomposing meat. The figure stepped closer to the water, and then the fisherman realized that this was not a man. The creature moved toward him, breaking branches and making hoarse, low breathing. The man was seized with panic. He dropped the gear and ran, not understanding the road. According to him, heavy footsteps chased him for several tens of meters, until he jumped out into the clearing. Only there the noise died down. He returned home in a state of shock, and had to give up fishing. Later, he told the neighbors about the incident, but did not contact the police because he was afraid of ridicule. Nevertheless, the rumors spread quickly, and the locals took his story as another confirmation. Something lives in the forests of Beltrami, from which not only people, but also animals flee. Since then, the forest has been shrouded in notoriety. Tourists try to avoid it, and locals warn strangers, if you hear the smell of rot, turn back. It is whispered that Corey's death was just the beginning, and that the swamp forest in Beltrami no longer belongs to man. Something else rules here, and the one who has once inhaled its scent will never leave the forest alive.